On vacation, my husband said he was going for a walk alone. Something felt off, so I followed. I found him at a small venue, standing across from my sister in a dress. I didn't say a word. Just left. 7 days later, they knocked on my door. And everything changed. My husband and my sister were getting married. And I was the wife he already had. Let me say that again because even now it still doesn't feel completely real. My name is Darcy. I'm 34. I grew up outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. And until about 3 weeks ago, I genuinely believed that the two people I trusted most in this world actually loved me. That belief died on a Tuesday afternoon in Savannah, Georgia. Preston and I had been married 6 years. A house in Nashville, a dog named Biscuit, a life that looked solid from the outside. Not perfect, we'd had our rough patches, but I thought we were okay. The Savannah trip was my idea. 4 days, good food, a reset. I planned the whole thing. My sister Tamara was not supposed to be there. She told me she was at a wellness retreat in the mountains. Sent me a blurry photo of pine trees. I laughed at it. Very convincing, Tam. I had no idea the photo was a lie. Or that it was far from the only one. Third morning of the trip, Preston was up early and dressed nicer than a casual walk required. He kissed me on the forehead, not the lips, and said he needed some air. I waited 12 minutes. Then I followed him. I wasn't panicking. I just needed to know. I tracked him down toward the waterfront, turned a corner, and stopped. He was standing outside a small event venue. String lights on the door. Chalkboard sign out front. And then the door opened, and Tamara walked out in a white dress. And Preston took both her hands, and they looked at each other the way people look when they think no one is watching. I stood there maybe 45 seconds. Then I turned around and walked back. I want to be honest. I did not handle the next few hours like some calm, collected woman in a movie. I ordered room service. I watched TV I'd already seen. I took Biscuit for a walk because he had nothing to do with any of this and he deserved better than the humans around him. When Preston came back and suggested lunch, I said sure. I sat across from him, watched him talk about the historic district architecture, and smiled. Because I knew something he didn't, that I knew. And whatever was coming next was going to be entirely on my terms. Was that the right call? I honestly don't know. But it's what I did. The question burning through me wasn't just how long, it was how deep this went. Venue, address, flowers. This wasn't some impulsive mistake. This had been planned, carefully, by both of them. I had 7 days before we flew home. 7 days to figure out what I was going to do. And when they showed up at my door together, because yes, that's exactly what happened, neither of them was prepared for the version of me that answered it. What would you have done standing in my sandals that morning? Would you have confronted him right there on the street? Tell me in the comments, because what I chose to do instead honestly surprised even me. Those last 4 days in Savannah were the strangest of my life. I shared a bed with Preston every night, ate meals with him, laughed at his jokes, and I want you to know that part took actual effort. We visited a cemetery on the ghost tour I'd planned, and at one point he put his arm around me and said, "This is exactly what we needed, babe." I smiled and said, "Yeah, it really is." The man had no idea. And honestly, that was the only thing keeping me functional. On the flight home I made a list. Not dramatic, not emotional, just practical. What did I actually know? Preston and Tamara had been meeting secretly. They had booked a venue together. She was in a dress. Whether they had gone through with an actual ceremony, I didn't know yet. But I knew enough. I also knew I needed one person in my corner before I did anything. That person was my cousin Rhonda. Rhonda is 10 years older than me, has survived 2 divorces, and has absolutely zero patience for nonsense. She's the kind of woman who shows up with a casserole and a legal pad and asks, "Okay, what are we doing?" I called her from the airport bathroom while Preston waited at baggage claim. I told her everything in about 4 minutes. There was a long pause. Then she said, "Darcy, baby, how are you not on the floor right now?" "I don't know," I said. "But I need you to help me figure out my next move before I do something I can't undo." She told me to come over the next morning. And that she was already making the casserole. Rhonda's kitchen table became my war room for the next 3 days. While Preston went to work, thinking everything was completely normal, I was sitting with Rhonda going through 6 years of small moments that suddenly looked different. The weekend trips, he said, were work conferences. The times Tamara had been vague about her plans. The fact that the two of them had never seemed to dislike each other. and I had always taken that as a good sign. Imagine how I felt realizing I'd been grateful for that. Rhonda helped me pull phone records through our shared plan. She wasn't even surprised by what we found. It was 2 years. Calls and texts going back nearly 2 full years. Some weeks, Preston had contacted Tamara more than he'd contacted me. I sat with that number for a while. 2 years of my life. 2 years of me thinking we were building something, while he was quietly building something else, with my own sister. Now here's where I'll admit I did something a little unhinged. "Are you ready?" called Tamara. I didn't confront her. I just called and acted completely normal. Asked how the wellness retreat was. She said, "Oh, it was so good, so restorative." I made a sympathetic noise. We talked for 11 minutes about nothing. She asked if Savannah was fun. "So romantic," I told her. Preston really outdid himself. She got quiet for just a second. Just 1 second. Then she laughed and said, "That's so sweet." I hung up and looked at Rhonda. "She has no idea I know," I said. Rhonda pointed her fork at me. "Good. Keep it that way. For now." I went home that evening and cooked dinner. Preston came in, kissed me on the cheek, asked what smelled good. I told him it was his favorite. Chicken piccata. He sat down and ate 2 helpings and told me about his day. I nodded in all the right places. And I thought about the envelope sitting in Rhonda's kitchen drawer. The one with the printed phone records inside. The one I was going to need very soon. Because here's the thing nobody tells you about being betrayed by 2 people at once. The anger doesn't hit you all at the same time. It arrives in waves. First it's your husband. Then it's your sister. Then it's the memory of every family dinner, every holiday, every moment the 3 of you were in the same room together. By day 6, I was furious in a way that was almost clarifying. And on day 7 they knocked on my door together. I had been expecting it. I just hadn't expected what they were going to say. Do you think I should have confronted them sooner? Or was waiting the right move? Keep asking myself that. Either way, what happened at that door changed absolutely everything. And I'll tell you exactly how it went. The knock came on a Sunday afternoon. I was home alone. Preston had told me he was running errands. Biscuit started barking before I even heard the knock, which, honestly, good boy. I looked through the window first. And there they were. Both of them. Standing on my porch together like that was somehow a normal thing to do. Preston had his hands in his pockets. Tamara was holding what appeared to be a coffee from the place I liked downtown. Peace offering. From my sister, who had been secretly involved with my husband for 2 years. The audacity genuinely took my breath away. Open the door. I want you to picture this. I was calm. Not fake calm, not brittle about to shatter calm. Actually calm. Because I had spent 7 days preparing for exactly this moment, and I was not going to waste it. "Hey," I said, like they were neighbors stopping by. Preston looked relieved that I'd opened the door. Tamara held out the coffee. "Can we come in?" Preston asked. I stepped aside. They sat on my couch in my house, and for a moment nobody said anything. Then Preston leaned forward and said the sentence I had been waiting for. "Darcy, there's something we need to tell you." I tilted my head. "Okay." Here's what they told me. They had, in fact, gone through with a ceremony in Savannah. Small, unofficial, no legal standing. Just the 2 of them and an officiant Tamara had found online. Preston's reasoning, delivered in a voice that kept cracking, was that he had been unhappy for years and didn't know how to say it. That he and Tamara had fallen into something neither of them planned. That he was sorry. That he had never wanted to hurt me. Tamara said she was sorry too. That she loved me. That she hated herself for it. I listened to all of it without interrupting once. When they finished, the room was completely quiet except for Biscuit, who had wedged himself behind my legs and was staring at Preston with what I can only describe as personal offense. Good dog, I thought. Do you want to know what I said? I said, "I know." Just that. 2 words. The color drained out of both their faces simultaneously, and I will not pretend that wasn't satisfying. "What do you mean you know?" Preston said. "I followed you," I said. "In Savannah. I saw you outside the venue. I saw the dress. I've known for 7 days." Tamara made a sound I don't have a word for. Preston said, "Darcy." "I also pulled the phone records," I said. 2 years, Preston. I've had a lot of time to do the math. The silence that followed was one of the most complete silences I have ever experienced. Now, Here's where I'll be honest about something. Part of me had rehearsed a version of this moment that was much louder. Rhonda had actually talked me out of printing the phone records and scattering them across the living room floor, which in hindsight was probably wise. What I did instead was quieter. And I think quieter landed harder. I told them both very evenly that I needed Preston to leave the house that evening, that I had already spoken to a lawyer, which was true. Rhonda's friend had given me a 30-minute consultation, and that I would be in touch about next steps. Then I looked at Tamara. I don't have anything to say to you right now, I told her. And I think you know why. She started to cry. And I felt something complicated about that. Not satisfaction exactly, but not sympathy either. Something in between that I'm still sorting out. Preston asked if we could talk more. I told him we would. Just not today. And then I held the door open until they left. I closed it behind them, sat down on the floor next to Biscuit, and finally cried. Not because I was broken, but because 6 years is a long time, and grief doesn't wait for convenient moments. I called Rhonda. She picked up on the first ring. How'd it go? She asked. Exactly like we planned, I said. She exhaled. Good girl. But here's the thing I didn't tell Rhonda that night. What Preston had said as he walked out the door, quietly, almost to himself, like he didn't expect me to hear it. He said, I think I made a terrible mistake. I didn't respond. I just closed the door. But I heard it. And in the weeks that followed, those 6 words would matter more than I expected them to. Was I too calm? Too composed? Some people would have screamed, and I completely understand that. But I want to know, do you think what I said landed the way it should have? Because what came next, I genuinely did not see coming. The weeks after that Sunday were the quietest of my life. Preston moved into a short-term rental about 20 minutes away. Tamara stopped calling after I let 3 of her attempts go to voicemail. The divorce paperwork was started. Biscuit slept on Preston's side of the bed, which I chose to interpret as loyalty rather than confusion. Life had a strange, hollow rhythm to it. Functional but emptied out. And then my mother called. My mother's name is Cheryl. She is 70% sweet and 30% chaos, and I say that with genuine love. She had known about Preston and Tamara for approximately 48 hours before she called me, which means someone had talked. And based on the speed of information, I'm guessing it was Tamara looking for sympathy. The conversation did not go the way I expected. Darcy, she said, in that particular tone she uses when she's already decided something. I think you need to hear Tamara out. I held the phone away from my face and stared at it for a moment. Mom. She's your sister. She made a mistake. A 2-year mistake, Mom. Families work through things. I want you to understand, I was not surprised. Not completely. Cheryl has always had a specific soft spot for Tamara, the younger one, the free spirit, the one who needed protecting. I had spent my whole life being the capable one, which in family dynamics often translates to the one who gets less grace. But hearing it out loud in that moment still stung more than I expected. I told my mother, as calmly as I could manage, that I was not ready to hear Tamara out. That I was processing a betrayal that involved both my husband and my sister simultaneously, and that I needed space before I could have any productive conversation. Cheryl said she understood. Then she said, just don't let this become a permanent thing. I got off the phone and called Rhonda. Your mother called Tamara first, didn't she? Rhonda said. It wasn't a question. Almost certainly, I said. Rhonda sighed the sigh of a woman who had seen this particular family pattern play out before. Classic Cheryl, she said. Here's what I did not do, and I want credit for this. I did not spiral. I did not send a long angry text to my mother. I did not call Tamara and say things I couldn't take back. What I did instead was focus on myself in a way I honestly hadn't in years. I signed up for a painting class, which I was terrible at. I started cooking things I actually liked rather than things Preston preferred. I reorganized the entire house over one long weekend while listening to a podcast about women who had rebuilt their lives from genuinely worse situations than mine, which was both comforting and humbling. Rhonda came over every Thursday with food and zero tolerance for self-pity, which was exactly what I needed. And slowly something started shifting. The hollow feeling began filling in with something quieter but more solid. I wasn't happy exactly, but I was becoming more like myself than I'd been in a long time. About 3 weeks in, Preston called. Not to negotiate logistics, just to talk. I almost didn't answer. But something, maybe those 6 words he'd said walking out my door, made me pick up. He sounded tired. Not performing tired, genuinely tired. He told me things had not gone the way he imagined with Tamara. That the reality of what they'd done, once the secrecy was gone, looked different in the open air. He didn't ask me to take him back. He just said he was sorry. A longer, more specific sorry than the one on the couch. One that named actual moments, actual failures, actual things he wished he'd done differently. I listened. I didn't cry this time. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because you deserved to hear it a long time ago, he said. And because I think I confused unhappiness with the wrong person for unhappiness with my life. That sentence sat with me for days. And then there was Tamara. She didn't call again after the voicemails. Instead, she showed up at my door on a Wednesday evening with no coffee this time, no offering. Just herself, looking like she hadn't slept properly in weeks. I opened the door but I didn't invite her in. We stood in the doorway. She didn't make excuses. I'll give her that. She just said, I know there's nothing I can say that fixes it. I just needed you to know that I'm aware of exactly what I did. And who I did it to. I studied her face for a long moment. Are you and Preston still? No, she said, quickly. It's over. I nodded slowly. Go home, Tamara, I said. I'm not ready. But I heard you. She nodded. Walked back to her car. Didn't look back. I stood in my doorway for a while after she left, Biscuit pressing against my ankle, the evening air doing that thing it does in Nashville in early fall where it's just cool enough to feel like something is ending. Which it was. Several things were. But standing there, I had this strange, unexpected feeling that something was also, quietly, carefully, beginning. I wasn't ready to forgive anyone. I wasn't even sure forgiveness was the right word for what I was moving toward. But I was done being defined by what they had done to me. And I had one more thing left to do. Something I'd been sitting on for weeks. Something that would finally close the chapter I'd been living in. Do you think I was too easy on Tamara at the door? Or was that the right call? I genuinely went back and forth on it. But what I did next, the thing I'd been planning quietly this whole time, that's the part one think you'll have the strongest opinion about. There's something nobody tells you about revenge. The dramatic version, the mass text, the public scene, the flipped table, feels satisfying for about 11 minutes. I know because I almost went that route 4 separate times. What actually works is quieter. And I'd been sitting on mine for weeks. Here's what Preston and Tamara hadn't thought through. He was still legally married to me when they held that little ceremony in Savannah, which meant the string lights and the officiant and the whole romantic moment meant absolutely nothing on paper. But the venue, owned by a woman named Gloria, had a strict policy requiring clients to confirm they were legally free to marry. A document Preston had signed. Rhonda found this detail doing what Rhonda does best. I wrote Gloria a letter. Polite, factual, no dramatics. Just the truth about who had stood in her venue that day. Gloria was not pleased. She called Preston. He later described it as one of the worst conversations of his life. Did I feel bad about that? I did not. The divorce finalized 6 weeks later. Clean, no courtroom, no warfare. Kept the house. The day the papers were signed, I came home to a bottle of wine on my porch and a note from Rhonda that said, "You did it, kid." I sat in the backyard and watched Biscuit chase something invisible along the fence and felt finished. Not triumphant. Just finished. Then my mother called. And this time she was crying. Not performing it, actually crying. She told me she'd spent weeks thinking about how she'd always leaned on me to be the strong one while giving Tamara extra softness. That she'd handled my pain badly and she knew it. That she was sorry. "Mom," I said. "I've never doubted that you love me." That made her cry harder. Which made me cry. Which I hadn't seen coming. It wasn't a magic fix. But it was real. And real mattered. Tamara called the following week. Answered. We talked longer than was comfortable. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She asked if there was any version of a future where we could find our way back to being sisters. "I don't know yet," I told her honestly. "What you did reached into the part of me that trusts people and did real damage there." She said she'd wait. "Don't wait," I said. "Just live your life. And we'll see." Not warm. But honest. And honest is worth more than warm on most days. It's been 4 months. Biscuit owns the bed and has no interest in negotiating. I finished 3 paintings. 2 terrible, 1 actually on my wall. I had dinner with my mother and we talked in a way we maybe never had before. Preston texted a few weeks ago just to say he hoped I was okay. I told him I was. 'Cause I genuinely am. And Tamara, we had coffee last week. First time since everything. It was awkward and careful and occasionally almost normal. We didn't fix everything. We didn't pretend. But we ordered a second coffee. Maybe that's what rebuilding actually looks like. Not some dramatic reset. Just two people in a diner booth deciding quietly to try. I'm not who I was when I packed for Savannah thinking a vacation could save a marriage. I'm clearer now. Harder in some places, softer in others. And considerably more certain about what I'll accept from the people in my life. Nobody handed me that clarity. I built it myself out of a genuinely terrible situation. And I'll take it. That's my whole story. I really want to know what you think. Leave it in the comments. Was I too patient? Not patient enough? Did any of this resonate with you? If it did, a like genuinely means a lot. It tells me someone out there was listening. And if something didn't sit right, tell me that too. Can handle it. Thank you for being here for all of it. Truly means more than I can say.